Hello, I have played over a week straight of Tarisland, completely free to play, doing absolutely everything the game has to currently offer. Welcome to my full review. Tarisland is a free-to-play, cross-platform MMORPG being developed by Level Infinite and Locojoy Games, while also being published by Level Infinite. Starting off with the settings, visually, it's quite nice, categorized and easy on the eyes with a heavy mobile aesthetic, which is crazy because the game is also on mobile. Wow! The basic settings offer pretty much what you'd expect, however you're unable to uncap your frame rate. The autoplay audio being enabled by default is a problem. This allows users from any selected channel to send voice memos you will be forced to hear. I'm sure you can guess how that went. They give you the option for a fixed camera if you so desire, though mostly only for the mobile players. I like what they did with the graphics options, as you most likely won't need to change much here. I do however recommend using custom if you're playing on PC, as you'll have more freedom in choice. Not that much of a difference between Epic and Movie, but it'll provide a few extra pretty lights. As for the rest of the settings, they're all pretty self-explanatory, so I won't be going over many of them. However, with keybinds being your best friend, I'll need to include that you can't rebind any mouse-related buttons. There's also no native full screen, so it's either windowed or borderless. Now for the UI, the game has a built-in customized tab, which I know many of you will enjoy. This allows you to change the location and size of almost every UI element on screen. Your currency top left can't be changed, but I love how easy they made it without using a third-party add-on. Crazy. They have an unstick option, which teleports you out of sticky situations. Pressing escape shows us this as well, but going into your settings provides us a renamed unstuck option. This is one of many examples of their poor English localization. Not a huge problem, but it's very apparent. The UI itself is overall quite annoying. Your inventory items overlap with each other. The minimap can't be zoomed in or out. It also doesn't update your location as quick as you'd expect. The world map doesn't center on your character. The red dot notifications will sometimes never vanish. And I might just be silly, but it's hard to remember what buttons on the screen does what. Each tab has extra tabs, and then you have bonus tabs up here. Pretty confusing, especially at first. As for the technical side of things, please note I'm running this off a low to high-end PC, so how this performs for me might not perform the same for you. With that being said, the vast majority of my experience has been fairly smooth, all at the max settings. That being said, I have had my issues with random stutters, crashes, and server-related things. I've been locked in arenas and dungeons, refusing to teleport me out. Relogging does fix this, however. My crashes have happened randomly, while loading into new locations or even grabbing items. The only real annoyance I would change is the launcher. It will close itself if left idle for too long and has no remember me option, forcing you to relog in every single time you happen to crash. That being said, nothing was frustrating enough to ruin my experience playing. As for the difficulty, I would classify it under being a beginner-friendly RPG. However, you are slapped with an insane amount of information very quickly, which can be daunting at first, but a lot of it is self-explanatory if you've ever played an MMO before. The game slowly ramps up in difficulty the further you progress, depending on what you pursue. While the game tries to edge you into doing absolutely everything, you can honestly play however you want and never have to actually touch the harder-to-complete group content. As for the gameplay, in short, Tarisland is a free-to-play, cross-platform, instanced MMORPG that offers 9 distinct classes, challenging dungeons, raids, alongside various PvE and PvP modes, all heavily inspired by various other titles. Starting at the beginning with character creation. Each of them have a quick cutscene, followed by general information on what they provide alongside their generic MOG set previews. If you are looking to get into the challenging endgame loop, I would recommend running a tank or healer, mostly because, as you'd expect, little to no one plays them, and they're always required for group content, so you shouldn't have any problems there. Most of the classes are gender locked, except 2 of them, and all classes in general are race locked. Not a big problem for me, though I know others won't like this. As for the tutorial, it's fairly quick and honestly quite helpful, assuming you are paying attention. If you're trying to rush through, you'll miss most of what it wants to show and be thrown a whole lot of extra information the moment it's over. That being said, it can be skipped by pressing the small exit button on the right. This can be helpful for second characters or those who just don't care. The combat itself is quite basic, yet has some depth to it. The general rule of thumb is to move away from red things, quickly move into blue things, grab what the announcer tells you, focus the ads, interrupt when you can, the tanks will swap stacks, healers will heal, rinse, repeat. Very basic stuff. As for the abilities, you'll always have 7 active depending on your specialization, with 3 ultimates of your choosing. You're also given another 3 buttons for potions or whatever you want to stick there. Each class gets its depth with its rotation and talent tree. though it can be auto-completed if you enable the recommended tree. There's also a built-in macro planner for those who don't want to press buttons at all, alongside an inscribed stone tree with interchangeable emblems and many passive traits. Overall, the combat is about figuring out your base rotation and micromanaging it from there. There are a lot of mechanics that can be against you and take some adapting to, but aside from that, it's fairly obvious to anyone who's played similar titles. One weird side note I will mention is that while exploring and killing anything that moves, mobs don't drop loot or provide you any sort of experience gain if they're not tied to a quest or event. Take that how you will, it's not an MMO you can just go and grind levels leisurely. As for the general gameplay loop, you can expect to log in, finish any quests or do reputation events, do your dungeons, raids, dark invasions, follow it up with PvP, professions, world boss, the amusement park, or any other activity you'd prefer until your daily and weekly limits are reached, and then rinse repeat that tomorrow. Everything, and I mean everything, is time gated in some way, shape, or form. You can't PvP or even buy off the trading post if you miss the time frame provided. Now, I don't mind doing obnoxious dailies for a silly reward, but when everything is a daily and time gated, I'm not too much of a big fan of that. If I play late at night, it feels like I'm penalized for having a life. There's no real freedom to do the things I'd want, and it starts becoming a chore instead of a fun little grind. Now, I call this a good beginner-friendly RPG, and I'll stick by that, as Tarisland has every good quality of life feature built right in that usually requires a third-party mod and various other titles to even think of. It has your customizable UI, dungeon and raid alerts, written guides explaining everything, damage meters, group stats at the end of content, and even your class's stat priority without having to guess or assume it. Everything you'd want for a simple MMO experience is here by default, and I think that is where the game truly shines. However, with that being said, the one thing it doesn't have is pure trading. They want you to do everything through the trading market, so you can't just craft an item and trade it to anyone. This is also to probably stop gold sellers, but I find it silly as trading is half the battle in RPGs. But thankfully you can cheese this one by owning a guild, putting your crafted bags or items in the warehouse, and having your friend obtain them through that. You're gated to only taking 3, but it's still something. Now, the game does generally throw a lot of information at you very quickly, which you can make easier on yourself by just focusing the quests, as it will guide you through content without a massive mess. I also figured out there is no AFK timer currently in place, so if you have to go downtown for 27 hours, you can leave the game open and come back perfectly fine. I like having no strict timer, but this can't be good for the server capacity. Now, the dungeons were a lot more fun than I thought they were going to be. Each one has 3 difficulties: normal, elite, and challenge mode. Normal is a cakewalk, elite introduces a new mechanic normal didn't have, and challenge mode introduces even more mechanics that will usually wipe your group if you mess up. You're also forced to group up for challenge mode, while the other 2 offer matchmaking and will autofill bots if they can't find real players within a selected time limit. Speaking of those bots, they are extremely helpful. It surprised me knowing how well they can do every boss almost flawlessly. That being said, they are incredibly slow and don't know how to run forward, so you will need to slow walk with them everywhere or wait for them to catch up prior to the fight. There is only one dungeon out of the bunch I thought was extremely boring, and that's because 2 of the 3 bosses are forced trash fights. That, on top of the trash leading up to them, is just overall an unfun experience. As for the raids, they are more difficult than any dungeon combined, but also quite easy to understand. None of their mechanics are incredibly complicated, however it requires 10 teammates to do basic things. That is where the toxicity and wipes will absolutely come into play. My biggest complaint comes down to the lucky coins you can obtain. They're used for extra rolls of loot, however they don't stack in your inventory or count as a currency, so you're forced to use them or create a bag just for them. Now take this next opinion with a grain of salt, as most PvP in this genre is simply not for me. The game obviously has it, and like I mentioned before, it's time gated every single day between the same time frame. Depending on the real life day you play, it will also determine what map and mode you'll be playing. There's also a competitive 3v3 arena mode for those who want to take it more seriously and chase a leaderboard for rewards. Now the PvP honestly feels great, it's smoother than I expected and pretty thought out. You will feel accomplished for every kill you manage, but you'll quickly realize the vast majority of players are insanely bad at doing anything objective related. This makes the whole point of Battleground miserable to play, and usually why I dislike team focused battles. Arena tries to solve this by forcing a 3v3 battle, but it's just not the same without a group of homies. Now, as someone who loves having their hand held and completing every quest possible, the questing here is interesting to say the least. Starting from day 1, most of them were unlocked daily, so you could only do story and side quest up to that day's unlocked level. If you play today, that is no longer the case, and you can do every quest I've done in a matter of a day or two. That's because they're all incredibly quick, easy, and not very thoughtful. The vast majority of them are simple fetch quests, waiting around, or nothing memorable. The quests they did put thought into are either daily reputation quests, mini-game related, or something they use once or twice and you'll never see it again from that point onward. This is when I realized there's a lot of underused mechanics just thrown about and immediately forgotten. Not a good sign, but could possibly be used in later content not yet unlocked. Now, if you accept too many quests, your scroll menu for them will simply break. The actual quest log you're given only shows quests you're on, nothing you're missing or have completed. It also sometimes struggles to remove quests you have finished, so some will just stay there regardless. And if you get quests from a current invasion, they do not count as a quest logged quest. However, I do recommend focusing on the questing, as in like most MMOs, it's your fastest way to level and showing you around the world. Professions, there are 4 of them: foraging, jewelry, tailoring, and alchemy. Once you've learned a profession, you can switch to another whenever by visiting its mentor in town. You will lose that profession, but all progress you made in it will stay. I absolutely love that. What I don't love is how every profession is locked by energy called Vigor, alongside real-life days for some crafting recipes. I'm also not a huge fan of the vast majority of recipes requiring another profession to craft it. A profession seems to mainly be get your own source of one material, buy everything else, craft what you can, use, or sell it. It is different, and I sort of get the appeal, but personally I would much prefer very specific endgame recipes requiring other professions, rather than my profession's entire catalog. The professions themselves also feel very irrelevant for anything but gems or bags, unless you just want to craft the gear you didn't get dropped. Fishing is one profession in every MMO you will always catch me grinding out. I don't know why, but I love it. The fishing mechanic here is honestly quite fun. You throw your rod out, pick the bait you want to use, wait for a bite, and it becomes a little clicking minigame. A lot better than just clicking a single bobber. That being said, the fish bait here is the problem. It is required to fish and yet cannot be crafted. It must be obtained by very limited side quests, events, or purchased from the shop at 500 silver per unit. One bait is one catch. If you fail it, you've wasted it. Seeing the one profession I love be treated this way is quite heartbreaking, but it is what it is. I know a lot of people love to cook, but I got news for you too. It's not a profession here. It is used in a select few side quests and currently has an entire food festival around it, but once this vanishes, it will also become irrelevant. The way cooking handled here is quite nice. You gather the ingredients from around the world, bring them back to a cooking station in town, keep the heat between its given recipe with a minigame, and ta-da, food. Yet another mechanic I fear will be underutilized the moment it passes. Cosmetics. You love them, I love them, we all love them. They can be obtained in various ways outside of just purchasing them for real money, such as achievements, random drops from activities, events, or even the leaderboards. Tarisland offers a lot of different cosmetics, such as outfits, mounts, pets, pendants, trails, tombstones, titles, and a lot more. You can make your character as hot or obnoxious as you'd like with the items provided. Now what's the catch, you say? Well, for starters, the gear. Every new piece you obtain does not visually change or unlock any sort of mod. Every piece of cosmetic is obtained from some other source. You can obtain a few freebie cosmetics from hitting certain item level requisites or completing specific achievements, but aside from that, you're heavily grinding out gold, praying to the RNG gods, or straight up pulling out your wallet. No other way for fashion land here. Now I'll be honest, the vast majority of the cosmetics are pretty cool and visually appealing. There isn't too much to say, except it's painfully obvious where the inspirations for most, if not all of them, have come from. Anyway, moving into the wonderful world of Tarisland, visually is quite nice and I enjoy the aesthetic they went for. It kind of reminds me a lot of WoW mixed with Genshin. I wonder why. That being said, the worlds themselves are neither too big nor too small. They did a decent job separating the world into 4, technically 6 different locations. You have Silverlit, which is the central hub or main city. You have its outskirts, Misty Forest, and Ancash Canyon, each unlocked according to their level cap. There's also an amusement park if you enjoy playing minigames or prop hunt. You can view this place as the gold saucer of Taris. The Dark Invasions get placed randomly throughout the locations every few days, turning them entirely into a literal hellhole with extra quests and reputation rewards. Last but not least, the world boss. It also gets placed randomly throughout the world, with each zone having its own unique boss to fight. All fairly easy as long as you have people around. Now most of the locations I named have their own points of interest, quests, teleports, collectibles, and events scattered all around them. If you enjoy exploring, they have a lot for you and you get rewarded for it, whether it be gold, emblems, or a title. Some collectibles are unobtainable without a flight mount or the purchase of staircases, but all of them are obtainable for free. As for the audio, it's pretty well done. I was surprised and quite impressed to hear that every cutscene and story related quest was voice acted. That being said, I don't see a lot of people enjoying them. With how poor the English localization is, it clearly transferred over here as well. No hate to the actors at all, I actually liked most of their voices, but it's painfully obvious they weren't exactly shown what they were supposed to be portraying, or perhaps they just weren't getting paid enough. There's little to no emotion in parts you'd expect to hear or see at least some, and the overall vibe put out in most cases doesn't match anything going on. The general ambient, footsteps, and moans all sound nice, with the majority of audio being okay. A lot of the audio is simply just not there, such as the audio of everyone around you. You rarely, if ever, hear others' footsteps, mounts, attacks, anything else. It makes the world around you look busy, yet feel very empty. The audio does have a lot of bugs, which may be the reasoning behind that, as there's even another annoying glitch that no matter what your settings are, certain mobs will have their attacks max volume and there's nothing you can do about it. It provides a nice little unintended jump scare every now and then, but shouldn't be there. Now for everyone's big question, is the game pay to win? Well, that depends on your perspective on it. With every new MMO being released nowadays, it seems to come with the promise of a fair, non-pay to win model before it's even released. If a game has to promote themselves around this concept, it's already an immediate red flag in my book. Let's give them the benefit of doubt and start with the currencies. There are a lot, so we'll go over most of them briefly. Silver, your base currency, is obtained from almost everything and used to purchase a lot of basic expenses, upgrading your abilities, crafting, you name it, you'll be using a lot of it. Gold is obtained from dailies, achievements, opening chests, and a few other things, used as the trading currency to buy items from the shop or trading market, including gear upgrades, gems, crafting materials, and more. Achromatic crystals, which are only obtained from gold, are used to purchase cosmetics or market items such as tickets or keys. No-name crystals are only obtained by purchasing them in bundles, which can be used to purchase gold, skins, or various other things. If purchasing gold with crystals in order to buy gear doesn't scream pay to win for you, keep coping. Most of the other currencies are obtained from doing something very specific, such as PvP, queuing with your friends, guild runs, or having server maintenance. All of them will have their own set of rewards tied to them, usually a chest, mount, pendant, stuff of that nature. Now, what are the tickets? Well, they're a subscription-based adventure that provides you a bunch of pay for convenience things, such as increased battle pass experience, no listing fees, less tax rate on the trade center, an auto fishing mechanic, among many other things that you're seeing on screen. Your first purchase could also grant you bonus gold or even a mount. It is important to note these tickets can be technically bought with the in-game currencies for free, however, obviously not the 180-day one. They love to tease the first time purchases, mostly because of FOMO, as the first top up you make will provide a mount, pendant, and a 10-slot bag, a top up being a single purchase of crystals. Moving into the market, you can straight up purchase one cosmetic set for 60 Canadian or a single mount for 40. Now I'm all for purchasing cosmetics if they're cool enough and priced accordingly, but the pricing here seems a bit greedy, and most of them are what we'll call familiar. Reward of Destiny is where the keys come into play. You can obtain them in-game for free in various ways. However, once they're all grabbed, you must purchase them with crystals. They are then used as a gacha roll to obtain some type of cosmetic. If you happen to roll the same thing twice, the second duplicate will be turned into another currency for a different list of cosmetics. If you happen to get blue tier duplicates, which is the lowest quality, they won't be turned into a currency, however, as they're treated out as stockables. If that wasn't enough, they also have a battle pass. Obviously, you have the free tier providing silver, chests, and a title for completing it, while the paid provides gold, mounts, pets, chests, and many other cosmetics for a cheap price of only $30. This is the most expensive pass from any game I've ever played. The best part of all is everything I mentioned is bought per character, not account. If you want the battle pass, purchase it on your main, or you'll be repurchasing it a few more times. Now, is the game pay to win? My opinion, yes. The moment you can purchase a currency to obtain anything better than what you currently have is more than enough for me to simply not care about doing so. There's no way around that. You obviously don't have to spend a single penny, but that convenience Sure sounds nice, huh? I mean, you're already enjoying the game. A few bucks won't hurt. Plus you get a better helmet, and you'd be helping support the developers after all. Hey, you made it to the story section and my thoughts on it. I won't be covering the spoilers in depth, but if you would like to avoid them, skip ahead to the positive and negative section below. Ready? Okay. Let's start with me forgetting to mention another wonderful addition to the game, which is if you ever wanted to rewatch the cutscenes I know you skipped, you can do so in the story tab. I think this is a very cool feature and should be included in other story-driven games. Feel free to pause the video and read any of these story notes I'm flashing on screen to try and grab onto anything that has happened thus far. But starting with a positive, I generally liked the cinematics. They were all appealing enough to hold my attention, and most were visually nicely made. Now, I didn't skip a large portion of this story on my first playthrough, as I tend to enjoy watching cutscenes. And I was obviously making this video, so I had to take notes. But let me tell you, it was painful to sit through. The game doesn't exactly take itself or its story seriously, so it was annoyingly hard for me to try and do so. You can tell they tried for something, but it's so poorly put together it feels like an afterthought. Nothing really makes sense, it's hard to grasp anything going on, and it doesn't help cutscenes randomly get cut off. It's just all around quite a poor experience if you're playing for anything story related. It's obviously a mobile game focused on PvE content first and foremost, so expecting a decent story was unrealistic of me, but I expected the bare minimum out of it and they managed to not even reach that quota. I can't say I'm exactly saddened by this, as I haven't fully cared about an MMORPG's story since the Lich King days, but I would love to eventually find a game where that does change. This one obviously ain't it. I'll read you the story's base description off the Tarisland's main website, as it will tell you all you need to know about it. This is word for word. Tarisland was meant to be but a speck of dust in the vast cosmos until your awakening. The engraved stones reveal divine guidance as the will of the three gods fiercely clashes here. To believe or to resist, the choice is yours to make. In other words, to try the game or avoid, the choice is yours to make, friends. Now let's go over some of the positives. PvE is the main focus, so if you enjoy raid or dungeon crawling, you're in luck here. It's actually quite good. The quality of life implemented here by default is impeccable. Classes have depth to them, all easy to learn, hard-ish to master. PvP is solid for those who have friends, and overall it can be quite fun and addictive to play, free to play. As for the negatives, it's very obviously a mobile game, even while on PC. It has a lot of currencies and predatory cash grabbing elements. It can be pay to win / convenience. FOMO is a huge playing factor in most of their decisions, and the game overall feels quite unfinished in a lot of its aspects. As a neutral, if you go in expecting an early access title, you might have more fun with it than someone who goes in expecting this next big thing. In conclusion, Tarisland is an instance-focused, cash-grabbing MMO I'm currently having quite a bit of fun with. It will hold me off until Brighter Shores or Zenless Zero releases, to say the least. Do I recommend it? Well, the base game currently being free-to-play on mobile and PC under its own annoying launcher, there is no real reason not to give it a try if you're even slightly interested. I do heavily recommend going in completely free-to-play, skipping story-related cutscenes, and avoiding any MTX possible, unless you truly love this game. It can easily provide a few hours of fun a day, but I don't recommend much more. Anyway, thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. Let me know your thoughts down below, or what game I should play next. Subscribe so you never miss a video, and until next time, take care.